Okay, so eyeballing and elimination technique. This is probably the most important video throughout the whole quantitative reasoning section, so do pay attention because the tips I am about to tell you will definitely change your life. Okay, maybe not change your life, but they will definitely help you. So, number one, what is eyeballing? Like, we know what an eyeball is, but what is eyeballing? So eyeballing is basically when you are able to eliminate obviously wrong answers by logical thinking and by staring at them. So without having to do any sort of major working out. Take for example this equation right here, 3 multiplied by 11. Obviously we know what the answer is, and this is an extreme example, but for the case of, explaining to you what eyeballing is, let's take a look at the answer option. So A is 2, obviously we know that's wrong instinctively, it can't be, just no point me explaining. B can't be 1000 because it's too large. C is 33, we know that is the right answer, and D is 3125, and obviously this is a relatively large answer. So the answer is C, and we didn't really have to do any sort of working out. That is basically what eyeballing is. Now, sometimes you can do a bit or half a calculation and then eliminate some answers. So 1241 multiplied by 1443, how do you do that in your head? You don't. Do you do that on the calculator? Sometimes you might want to, sometimes you might not. It's totally up to you, but this is usually a question we all do on a calculator. But if you weren't to do this on a calculator, and let's say you were running out of time, your heart's beating, you're panicking, you're sweating, and you're like, I've got 10 seconds. Opening up the calculator will probably take me around about 5, and plugging in the numbers will probably take me around another 5, and then time's over and you've lost your mark. But this is what you do. So, how on earth do we eliminate some of the answers and get to a good logical answer? So, firstly, we look at the last digit of each of the numbers. So in this case, it's 1 and 3. So let me just write this down. Now, as you know, if this wasn't timed and if we had a pen and paper exam, we would usually, do the column multiplication method where we do 1 times 1 is 1 and 1 times 2 is 2, 2, 1. Obviously, by then I would have calculated this on the calculator, but if we didn't have this and didn't have the calculator, then what? So we look at the last 2 digits, which is 1 and 3, multiply them to give us 3. 3 is most likely going to be our last digit. Now for the final answer. So the last digit of the final answer will be 3. So then we look in the answer options and we see, okay, which one ends in a 3? Sometimes you might get 2 answers which end in a 3. Well, that's good because now you have a 50-50 probability of getting it right. And sometimes you might only have 1 answer which ends in a 3, and there we have it. That will be your answer. So you don't really need to do this on the calculator. So you can simply just eliminate the rest and A is your answer. Now here's one thing to bear in mind, that the last digit of each of the numbers has to be between 0 and 5. Any number greater than this will obviously involve carrying numbers and it's just all messy and you won't get the right answer or the correct answer by guessing. But if, let's say it's 1, one of the digits is 1 and the other number can be any number, because obviously 1 multiplied by X will give you X. It's as simple as that. So make sure it's a number between 0 and 5, or make sure one of the digits is 1, and you should be able to kind of eliminate your answer. And if you can do that and come to an answer a lot more quickly, then that's really good. Okay, so you can also round up numbers or round them down to make the calculation a lot easier. So 245 plus 995, obviously 995 is a lot closer to 1000, and then you can add 245 to 1000 to make 1245, and then you can subtract the 5 that you added on right at the start, which should give you 1240. Here is another elimination strategy. So how we form odd and even numbers. This is a good elimination strategy. If you understand how we form odd and even numbers, it can really help you eliminate certain answers, give you a 50-50% chance of getting a question right without really having to do any sort of calculation. And it will just save a lot of time. Now, obviously, I'm not saying do this throughout the whole exam, but you know, it's there to help you speed up your calculations. Like I said before, the main thing in quantitative reasoning is that you interpret the information, simplify the information so you get an equation, simple equation to answer, and the second bit was that you speed up your calculations. So these tips will help you do that. Now, if the question, let's say, was 2 multiplied by 55, we know, at the back of our heads, we know that 2 multiplied by any number gives us an even number. So by looking at this, we know 313 is not even. And then, sorry, I tried to make one of those buzzing noises. But anyways, we continue. B is 535, which is not an even number. D is 111, which is not even. Therefore, our answer is C. Whether it's that simple or not, or whether the answers are more spaced out or close together, or sometimes you might have, once again, you might have 2 even numbers, then obviously it's a probability 50-50% chance that you will get it right. So this is just another technique that you should keep in mind. So how do we form even numbers? So an even number can only be formed either 2 odd numbers added together or 2 even numbers added together. So let's say, for example, we have 44 plus 34. Obviously both of them are even, so we are expecting an even answer. If there is an answer from the answer options that is odd, obviously eliminate it completely. You don't even want to look at that answer. And then the rest that are even, you want to consider and make a good logical guess. Rule number 1 to make an even number: odd plus an odd gives you even, and even plus an even gives you an even number. Okay, so odd numbers can only be formed by the sum of an odd and even number. So O plus E gives you an odd number, or even plus odd. Odd plus even plus odd, both the same thing. So when one of them is odd and one of them is even, that will give you an odd answer. So 51 plus 34, obviously you are expecting an odd answer. So you eliminate A because it's 78, that's even. You eliminate C because that's even, and D as well. And then as a result, you're left with B, which is 85. An even number can only be formed by multiplication in 3 different ways. Number 1, even multiplied by an odd number. Odd multiplied by even, which is the same again, and even multiplied by even. So let's say 32 multiplied by 46. Well, obviously, once again, without doing any sort of working out, you eliminate A, you eliminate C, you eliminate, oh, okay, now we've got a 50-50 probability. Now, which one is it most likely to be? Well, then, once again, you can use the method I told you right at the beginning, I think. So you multiply the 2 last digits, so 2 and 6. Now I did say between 0 and 5 that the digits have to be between 0 and 5, but in this case it's between 0 and 6, and if you kind of use a bit of mental effort, you can kind of visualize what the answer could possibly be. So the answer here will be D and not B. And the reason being is because 6 times 2 is 12, and the last digit of 12 is 2, and then the 1 is carried over somewhere else. So that is our answer. So here we didn't really do any working out and we came to an answer. Okay, so an odd number can only be formed by multiplication in one way. So odd multiplied by odd gives you an odd number. So let's say 31 multiplied by 47. If you are expecting an even number, then it shouldn't be. So it should always be odd. Odd multiplied by odd gives you an odd number. So it's not A, it's not C, it's either one of these two, and obviously it's going to be D. Because 1 multiplied by 7 is 7, that will be our last digit for the final answer. Now, if you had to do this on the calculator, obviously it would take a bit of time, but just by simply eyeballing and, you know, using the previous method I told you, you can come to your answer quite quickly. Now, obviously you shouldn't be using this as your only method. You should also be actually actively calculating on the calculator as well, just to make sure you are correct as well. Okay, so here's a common question. When should I eyeball and use the elimination technique? So you should first see whether you can eliminate some of the answers by using the previous odd even method or any of the other methods, so doing half a calculation or calculating the last digit of the number, and see whether that eliminates any answers. Also check to see how closely bunched up the answers are, because if they look something like this, so 11.5324, 11.5325, 11.5326, they're really close together, so obviously you want to be accurate here as much as possible. But if the answers seem to be spread out, then you can use the rounding technique and come close to an answer. So for example, consider the division 421 divided by 19. To do this in your head is kind of hard, so this is not an easy sum to do. And however, if you round 421 down to 420 and then round 19 up to 20, it becomes a lot easier. So 420 divided by 20, obviously you can cross out the zeros, so cross out the zeros here, which gives you 42 over 2, which is literally saying 42 divided by 2, which gives you 21. So we know our answer is very close to 21, but isn't exactly 21 due to the rounding up. So the answer is 22.15. Now remember this, the more you round up or down, the higher the level of error. So the more inaccurate your answer will be.